Hello everyone, and welcome to Lavender and Sage. I'm Abigail, and I use she, her pronouns. Today, I will be discussing the popular Netflix series Atypical, specifically the way it handles bisexual representation. Atypical follows Sam Gardner, a teenager on the autism spectrum, and his journey towards independence and his developing relationships. The show also follows his parents and his younger sister, Casey Gardner. Casey is a confident high school student and talented track star, and in this show, she goes through a journey of self-discovery as she attends a new private school on a track scholarship and forms and breaks off relationships and friendships. Despite her teasing, Casey cares deeply about her brother and her family. Casey is played by Bridget Lundy-Payne, I believe I pronounced their name correctly, a non-binary actor who uses they/them pronouns. So, to clarify, when I use she, her pronouns, I'm referring to the character, Casey, not the actor. Also, there will obviously be spoilers in this episode, so if that's something that bothers you, I'd highly recommend clicking off and watching it at a later time. Okay, now that that's over, I would like to go through the basics of her storyline, and I'll make some commentary along the way. In Season 1, Casey gets in a relationship with a boy named Evan. Evan is one of Casey's classmates' brother, who used to attend her high school, and he is 1 year older than her. He is a very supportive and thoughtful person, and although they had some relationship struggles in this season, they were able to work through them and maintain a happy and stable relationship. Things change in Season 2 when Casey goes to a new private school on a track scholarship. She struggles with academics and finding friendships, but she eventually befriends a girl named Izzy after having a bit of a feud with her. Both of them had boyfriends for most of the season until Izzy's boyfriend tried to kiss Casey while Izzy was sleeping over at her house. Casey later told Izzy about the cheating, and Izzy's boyfriend gaslighted her into thinking that Casey was lying and Casey was the one who initiated the kiss. That trouble eventually blows over as Casey explains herself, and Izzy breaks up with her boyfriend. And plot twist, the two develop feelings for each other. They almost kiss at Casey's 16th birthday party, but Elsa, Casey's mom, walks in on them and interrupts them before they're able to. Keep in mind, at this time, Casey is still dating Evan. When they go downstairs, Casey kisses Evan in front of Izzy to make her jealous and uncomfortable and to remind Izzy that she is still in a relationship. The season ends with them getting slushies together, and then them admitting their feelings and holding hands in Casey's car. Casey does not break up with Evan, and it takes a while for the two to talk about what happened during slushy night. In Season 3, they don't talk about their feelings for a while, but there's definitely some tension. In one episode, Casey and Izzy attend a dinner party together, and one of the guests calls them out and says that they look like a couple, and they're surprised that Casey was in a relationship with someone else. Later in the season, Izzy doesn't come to school for 3 weeks and ignores all of Casey's messages about why she's gone, and Casey offers to help multiple times, but Izzy always leaves her on red or turns it down. Izzy eventually apologizes to Casey about the ghosting and spends the night with Casey's family after Elsa, Casey's mom, asked Izzy if she wanted to stay with them to avoid her family problems. Casey and Izzy sleep in the same bed, and Casey doesn't sleep for the whole night because she was kind of uncomfortable about the situation because she was starting to develop romantic feelings for Izzy. Izzy eventually confronts Casey about their whole relationship situation, and they end up kissing. They talk about it later that night, and Casey decides that she has to choose between dating Evan or dating Izzy. A few days later, Casey tells Evan about the cheating, and naturally Evan got very upset. Evan was especially upset because he strongly disliked Izzy for the way that she treated Casey throughout their whole entire friendship, and he also suspected that something was up between the two because they had been flirting and acting strange for the whole season. Evan rightfully breaks up with her. Shortly after, Casey gets in an unofficial relationship with Izzy. I'm going to stop explaining the plot for a quick minute and talk about my thoughts. I completely understand that the show is supposed to be dramatic and that the characters are supposed to be flawed, but representation like this perpetuates the already prevalent stereotype that bi people are cheaters. This stereotype is really harmful because it makes bi people seem immoral and inconsiderate. Now I'm going to move on to talking about their relationship and how much I kind of hate it. Casey and Izzy's relationship starts in a really toxic way. What a shocker. Sam sees Casey and Izzy kiss at Casey's house, and in the best way possible, he doesn't really care. He relates their relationship to that of gay penguins in Australia, which are really cute, by the way. Antarctica is Sam's main hyperfixation, so relating Casey to the penguins is a way of showing affection and approval. When Casey goes on a trip to a track meet, Sam puts a drawing of the penguins in Casey's bag. Casey later shows the drawing to Izzy. Izzy gets mad at Casey for letting them get caught and for wanting to be open about their relationship. Later that day, Izzy apologizes to Casey and asks if she wants to go to a party with her. At the party, they dance together and hang out, and Casey leaves Izzy for a short period of time to have a conversation with her friend. After that conversation, Casey turns around to find Izzy kissing a random boy. So now we have two cheating characters. Well, two cheating queer characters. The mother is also a cheater, but that's completely unrelated. But I also think it's kind of funny because, Casey got mad for multiple seasons about her mom being a cheater and later on also becomes a cheater. So I think it's really hypocritical. And I mean, sometimes kids are like hypocrites and not every character is going to be perfect, but I don't know. I just thought it was kind of ironic. So Casey got mad at Izzy for a while, but they eventually make up and decide to date officially. What a great start to a relationship. Now we start season 4. Casey comes out to her dad by stating that she is in a relationship with Izzy, but she doesn't explicitly state what her identity is because she hadn't quite figured it out yet. Similarly to Sam, he isn't really surprised and doesn't really care, but he does express that she's still his daughter and he sees her the same way that he did before, which I think is really sweet. Also, one kind of funny thing to note is that at this time, her dad really doesn't like Izzy because he saw the ups and downs of their friendship, and also he did like Evan because he thought he was a really sweet kid, and they broke up over Izzy, who he didn't like, so I think he was kind of onto something. On the topic of coming out, Casey didn't really have to come out to her mom because she caught them almost kissing. So Elsa, her mom, brings up the subject multiple times, which Casey always tries to shut down. At one point, Elsa admits to having a relationship with a girl when she was in college, which I thought was interesting because I think one thing with parents, especially back parents who were teenagers and were in college in the 80s and 90s were like, oh yeah, I never really understood the whole entire bisexual thing. I mean, of course women were attractive and I got with a girl and dated a girl, but I'm still straight. I think that's something I've noticed that quite a few, especially women say. So seeing that reflected in this show was just kind of funny. I kind of enjoyed it. Anyways, although the conversations are a bit awkward, they are kind of sweet because it shows that Elsa accepts Casey and she also wants Casey to be able to accept herself. So, parents learning about your sexuality without your consent is very difficult. But I think her parents navigated the situation really well, and I think the show provided good representation about how parents should act when their kids come out to them. So, Izzy and Elsa encourage Casey to join her school's LGBT forum/GSA. So Casey is hesitant at first, but ultimately decides to attend a meeting. So at the start of the meeting, Casey is confused and feels really out of place, which I think is a pretty relatable experience as someone who's a part of my school's GSF. I really do enjoy the club, but I've definitely had my ups and downs with it. Because I was very new to the LGBT community when I joined it, when it first started my freshman year. So she expresses her confusion around pronouns because one of the leaders introduces herself and so she uses she, her pronouns, and Casey got very confused and made a joke about it. And then also during the meeting, she cracks a few jokes because she jokes around in serious situations. I do too, so I completely understood that. So yeah, I can really relate to the fact that becoming involved with LGBT groups can be kind of overwhelming because there's a lot going on, and in general, it's easy to be kind of clueless, especially with, lack of representation. And also, it's somewhat embarrassing to not know as much as other people in a group that you're technically a part of. Being corrected and being perceived as insensitive for not knowing things or understanding things or cracking jokes about something that you don't entirely understand because you're uncomfortable is pretty embarrassing. Although educating people is definitely good, it has to be done the right way so that the person doesn't feel ashamed of what they don't know. I'm definitely glad they included this because not everyone has a perfect experience with joining the LGBT community, especially with bi people who experience biphobia both within the community and outside of the community, but I could talk about that later because I feel like that's a whole big issue that deserves its own episode. One problem with the LGBT community that kind of deters some people is that some people in the LGBT community see themselves as better than the others because they're more woke or educated, when in reality we have to work together and educate ourselves and others respectfully and make the learning and education about growth and not necessarily about punishment. Throughout the season, Casey and Izzy get in numerous fights and disagreements. In my opinion, their relationship is very toxic, and a lot of people on the internet who make edits and posts and stuff like that are romanticizing their relationship not because it's a good relationship, but simply because it's one of the few examples of women loving women relationships on TV. I personally prefer Evan, her first boyfriend, because he treats her significantly better than Izzy. Both Izzy and Evan have complex family relationships, but Evan is still kind and doesn't blame his trauma on his relationship problems, unlike Izzy. Izzy also clearly struggles with internalized homophobia as well, which is something that Evan doesn't experience, but she quickly grows past it in the 4th season when they start being open about their relationship. So that's not really a topic that's touched on a ton. I think it would have been interesting if they did touch on it and talk about it, but they didn't. She kind of just skipped that part. Although Izzy isn't a bad person necessarily, and she has been through a lot, I still just really don't like her at all. And I think that people need to stop acting like their relationship is good just because it's queer. It's pretty important to portray all kinds of queer relationships because the community is very diverse and there are lots of different kinds of relationships in the world. But this relationship is just horrible, and it would have been a lot better. I mean, I would have understood a toxic relationship just in general, but this is one that portrays negative cheating stereotypes, which I really don't enjoy. So, towards the end of the season, Izzy blames herself for all of the problems in their relationship, which, I mean, kind of true. And Casey forgives her almost immediately, and they decide to continue dating. I don't even think I need to state my opinion on this decision. Also, one thing that happens in the last season is that Casey talks about her sexuality to one of Sam's friends. Sam's friend is named Abby. That's kind of funny, Abigail. And she's bisexual and talks to Casey about her experiences, discovering who she is and discovering her sexuality. Also, one cool thing to note is that the character Abby has a boyfriend, which I like because bi people are still valid even if they're in straight relationships. So, after hearing about Abby's experiences, Casey decides that she wants to identify with the bisexual label as well. She tells Sam about her identity, and the funny thing is he's not surprised in the slightest. In fact, he said it was obvious and that he already knew because she had dated both guys and girls. I thought this was really funny because he knew before she did, and generally this holds true to some real-life situations because some people are just really good at guessing, and, they think it's kind of just pointing out the obvious, I think I said something like this one time. This is actually kind of bad because it was just me guessing someone's sexuality based on bi stereotypes. But this person came out to me and I was like, yeah, I already knew this. You were wearing cuffed jeans. So that's definitely me guessing someone's sexuality based on stereotypes, but I was right in the end. And some people say that I have a very good gaydar. But I don't know. I feel like I could actually talk about the concept of gaydars in a later episode because a lot of it does kind of depend on stereotypes. I don't know. I'm actually thinking about doing this for another episode now. Look at me brainstorming. I'm so smart. Anyways. I have some other miscellaneous comments to wrap this up. One thing I discovered while reading some articles and interviews with Bridget Linty Payne was that some fans thought that Casey was lesbian since season 1, so while she was still in a relationship with Evan. That is likely because Casey does dress pretty androgynously, and she does act kind of masculinely sometimes. She has a bit of a deeper voice, she participates in athletics. However, I'm glad they made her bisexual instead of lesbian, not just because I'm bi, but because bisexual people don't have to have a certain look to be bisexual, so while she does fit some more of the lesbian stereotypes, her identity is still valid. She still dates both guys and girls, and her dating both guys and girls in this show just shows that, bi people can date both and still be bi, and that just because she got in a relationship with a girl doesn't mean that her attraction to men is it disappears. You can be attracted to one man in your entire life and only be attracted to women and still be bisexual, because being bi is just having the potential to be attracted to 2 or more genders. So I like how it kind of touched on that. That was good. Overall, I have some pretty mixed feelings about the bi representation in the show. I definitely think the cheating and the toxicity of Casey and Izzy's relationship was negative representation, but otherwise I think they did a pretty good job of representing what it's like being a bi teenager and coming to terms with your identity. At least, everyone has slightly different experiences, but this was a good representation of what some people experience. So I relate to her story a lot, except for the cheating parts. I'm not really like that. And I'm really glad that the show took its time in terms of her coming to realize her identity, because some people don't realize it immediately. And I liked how they showed that it's a process of self-discovery, not just an immediate, oh my god, I'm bisexual. Even though, some people definitely do experience that. Some people it is it hits them, or they know since they were young. But I think this is also a pretty realistic and common path that a lot of bisexual people experience. So I'm happy that they included that. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations or comments or anything, you can put it in the comment section or on the Instagram, which I can link below. So thank you so much, and I will see you next episode.